And welcome back to the Girly Girl Bookworm. So today I have my January wrap up for you, which I find really interesting because the month is not over, and this is so not like me. I usually like to have all my books done before I do this wrap up, but just timing with the way the month is ending, I just figured I would get this up and out before it's too late, because I find when I wait for all the books, sometimes like this video doesn't get posted till the middle of the month, and then it gets confusing. So I figured I'm just going to tell you what I'm currently reading. Hopefully they'll be done. I could tell you my general thoughts, and then we'll get into the books that I definitely completed. So I'm currently reading two books. I'm currently reading She's Faking It, which is by the same author who wrote How to Hack a Heartbreak. And I really enjoyed How to Hack a Heartbreak. And so I requested She's Faking It on Netgalley, and I got it. And unfortunately it came out last summer, but it just never fit in my TBR. It just never fit in the timing. And so I randomly needed to pick something up, and I was like, okay, I really need to get to this. This came out already. I need to review it. And I'm currently about 35% in, and I really don't like it. I'm super bored. I'm super just disinterested. It is about a girl who's kind of like down on her luck. Like, her boyfriend left her a couple months ago. She's a college dropout. Her mother died when she was younger. She's a Grubhub worker. Woe is me, everything keeps going wrong, and I need to reinvent my life. And she like meets this guy, but she's had very minimal interactions with him so far. And she is her sister like gives her this book of like how to do better in your life, and like trying to like motivate her. And so she like creates this like Instagram, which is like her trying to like create a dream board through Instagram, and it's getting some attention. I'm assuming it's going to be her ultimate like downfall in the end, when like there's got to be conflict somewhere. Nothing has happened really so far. All she does is complain and moan about she has no money and how she can't afford things and how she's broke, and I'm not interested. I like don't care. And like the love interest, I don't know how he's gonna fall in love with her, because I just like I don't see the connection. I don't feel the spark. I don't feel anything. So right now, my prediction is it's gonna be a 3, maybe 2-star read. Hopefully it'll end nicely where I will eventually give it a 3-star, but right now it's just not going very well. The other book that I'm currently reading is this chunky book, A Court of Mist and Fury by Sarah J. Maas. This is the second book to A Court of Thorns and Roses, which I read last summer and really, really enjoyed. I've been avoiding this one because it's chunky. I left it to the last second just because I had planned on reading this during Martin Luther King weekend, but I got super, super sick that weekend. I thought I had COVID. I don't have COVID, but I had a fever. I was sleeping constantly. Like, it was just really bad. So that didn't end up happening. And after that, I just like needed to recover to the point that there was no way this was going to happen. I am currently only 130 something pages in. Like, I only got to like the first part. Like, I finished the first like part because it's split up into parts. My plan is after I'm done filming everything today that I will be able to get a decent chunk through, and then I'll be able to hopefully like knock it out tomorrow, because it is a fast read. I read the 136 pages very quickly, so I will be able to finish this one. Right now, I don't know what I'm going to rate it, because I've heard that it's amazing, so I'm going to wait for it to knock my socks off first, and then I'll rate it. But so far, this one's going well. If it doesn't end up happening in January, it'll definitely be finished in February, and I will definitely tell you my thoughts in February. All right, so I have all my books written down because some of these books I don't own. But guys, I had probably the most amazing reading month that I've had in a super duper long time. Not even in terms of the fact that I read so much, but I read so much high quality books. So many high quality books. I only disliked 2. Like, I rated one poorly, and then the one that I'm currently reading. So 2 books out of the majority of all the books that I read. Like, I read some amazing books. I'm so excited to share them with you. The first book I read was Wife by Wife by Olivia Hayfield. This is a book that is kind of like a modern day, like Henry VIII story, where each character kind of embodies Henry VIII or Henry VIII's wives or other people that were in his life at that time. And it was really fun. It wasn't as fast-paced as I thought it was going to be, because the back, like, mentions a whole lot of stuff that, like, doesn't happen till, like, kind of the end. Like, you kind of get a snippet of it in the prologue, but it really doesn't happen till the end. And, he moves through his wives a lot slower than I anticipated in order to get through the ones that are mentioned. But I did find it really fun. I found it engaging. I found it really interesting how the wives were portrayed in a current timeline. And every now and then it would, like, make a nod to Henry VIII. Like, Henry VIII actually existed in their world. It's not like they completely, like, wiped him out. So they would make little nods and different comments that would, like, lead you to, like, it just, like, felt like they were breaking the fourth wall, which was really fun. They do give you a, like, cast of characters and, like, who they are. So it'll be, like, Harry Rose, and then, like, brackets it says, like, King Henry VIII. So, like, it'll tell you exactly who they're supposed to be compared to, which I thought was a lot of fun, and I like took advantage of that. It's in the front and it's in the back. No, it's an epilogue. So I really took advantage of that just to, like, remind myself who they were supposed to be and who they're connected to. There is apparently a sequel coming out, but it's more focused on basically Elizabeth and Mary. They're called different things in this book, but it's essentially about the sisters. I think it's called, like, Sister to Sister or something like that, or Sister by Sister. I don't remember. But it's essentially more focused on them, but I believe Henry VIII and stuff, like, they're still, like, woven through. So I found it a really fun, interesting read, and I gave it 4 stars, and it was a nice way to start the month. Then after that, I read Layla by Colleen Hoover, and this was our buddy read pick from me and from Kendra and I. So we read this together and hosted our little chat over on Instagram. I thought it was really interesting because so many of us had various opinions on this one. I did read this one on my Kindle, even though I owned a physical copy, just because I, like, wanted that type of pacing. So I don't know if that was a different experience or what, but I did give this one 5 stars. Kendra gave it 3 stars. I think Shelby gave it 3 stars. Other people in our group gave it 4 stars. The opinions on this varied so much, but it made for such a fun, engaging discussion. This is Colleen Hoover's, like, first step kind of into the paranormal world. We are following our characters, Leeds and Layla, and we find them how they, like, start their relationship, and something tragic happens to Layla, and Leeds is really trying to get their relationship back, so he brings them back to this bed and breakfast where they first met, and trying to re-spark their love and really, like, re-bring Layla back to, like, her normal self. And while they're there, some stuff happens, and I'm not going to tell you what because that would be a spoiler, but I found it really engaging. I was really addicted. I couldn't stop flipping the pages. I didn't see the twist coming. I didn't see the ending coming. Some people found it predictable. I didn't. I just had so much fun with it, and I ended up giving it 5 stars. Then after that, I read The Removed by Brandon Hobson, and this was the buddy read pick with Mama Lee Ellen from Mama Lee Ellen's Book Nook and over on Instagram, and this one was my main book of the month choice as well for January, so that was fitting. This follows the Cherokee Nation, which I thought was very interesting and very, like, I learned a lot from this book. They are following a family, and 15 years prior, one of their sons, there's 3 children, the middle son is murdered by a cop with no justice served. And it's kind of like their grief because they're all in such various places. The dad is experiencing early onset dementia. The mother is basically depressed and trying to pick up all the pieces and just trying to figure out how to make life work. The sister is just, she's kind of, I don't know how to explain it because I saw her storyline was really interesting, but basically she just kind of, like, has a lot of relationships with different men, and she's just kind of, like, trying to live her life that way. And then the youngest brother, he basically is a heroin addict and he's struggling to live his life. And every year on his anniversary, they have a bonfire to try to remember the middle brother who was murdered. And this also coincides with a Cherokee holiday. And I found this one so gripping and different and lyrical and magical. There's some magical realism elements in here where you're not sure, is this really happening? Is this in his head? Is this supposed to be a euphemism for something else? It was really gripping. I will say the writing style took me a little bit to get used to. I didn't really love it in the beginning, but the storyline itself, just the story about grief and how to move on and how to live your life, and it was very compelling. I loved the discussion about this. I ended up giving it 4.5 stars because I think it's a really important read, and I really can't wait to read more books by Brandon Hobson. Then we also read In Light of the Mountain by Jamie McMillan. Basically, I wanted, not on purpose, but I knocked out all of the buddy reads in the beginning of the month, so that way when their chats happened, I was already ready to go. And so this is book 2 to In Sight of the Mountain. And I loved this book. This book was kindly sent to me by the author. I gave this one 5 stars. I really enjoyed this one. I liked the first one a lot, but I liked this one so much more. We are following Anna in the 1890s, and she wants to be the first woman to summit Mount Rainier. So we're watching her try to do that in the first book. This book takes place pretty much right when that book ends, and I just found it really interesting, and I find that each book seems to kind of follow Anna closely and one of her friends. So the first book followed one friend, this one's following another friend, and now the third book, I believe, is following Anna, obviously, and then another girl from the story. And I just find it so important, and it's talking about women and what their rights were and trying to live their life in a society that's not necessarily built for women, which I found very interesting. There's also a Native American tribe that kind of the story of them kind of weaves in and out because there's a tribe member who is friends with Anna, and I just really liked that element as well. I just can't get enough of the series, and I read this so quickly, and I am now dying for book 3. We have our chat for this one tomorrow night, and we get to Zoom with the author, and I'm so excited. I say so tomorrow night. You're seeing this way later. I am doing this book club discussion January 31st. So it's already happened by the time you see this, but you know what I mean. Then I read The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. And guys, why didn't nobody tell me to read this sooner? This came out in 2017, and at that point, I was really working hard to read anything off my shelves. I was starting to really hate YA, and I was trying to get away from it. And I am so glad that I'm slowly creeping back to YA because some of these hard-hitting contemporaries are amazing. Adults need to be reading them too. They are fantastic. This book, I'm sure I don't even need to explain what this one's about because the love of this book is everywhere. And, sorry, my computer is trying to tell me to update things right now. Don't want to update it. This book was phenomenal. I cried. I immediately went out and pre-ordered Concrete Rose. I watched the movie. I sobbed. This book is just intense, and the amount of topics this covers, you would think that the amount of topics that this covers in terms of racism, interracial dating, microaggressions, protesting, police brutality, just to name a few. That's 5 things right there. You would start to think that this book is going to hit too much and bite off too much that it can't chew, and it didn't come off that way at all. Gangs, gang violence, drug abuse, keep going, you name it. She probably covered it in this book, and she did it in such a great way. Never once did this book feel like it was dragging out. I thought this book was going to take me a long time, and I didn't, the first night I was reading it, I didn't want to put it down, but I had to. And then I finished it the next day because I was so gripped by it. If you have not read this, you need to read this. 5 stars. Phenomenal. Then after that, I went ahead and I also read Grown by Tiffany D. Tiffany D. Jackson. And this book, again, another 5-star read. I don't know a month where I've had so many 5-star reads or close to 5-star reads. This is another YA novel following our main character, Enchanted. And Enchanted, her parents really want more for her. They want her to basically be a doctor. They want her to go do something else with her life. And she really is musically talented. And she ends up coming into a path of a producer. And he takes complete advantage. And she ends up in this tumultuous, awful, abusive relationship with him. And it was heartbreaking. It was hard to read. It was difficult. We're alternating between this perspective of, you know, something bad is happening, and then you go back to like the past timeline of what's leading up to that bad event. And it was 100% gripping. Another one that deals with so many topics that again, shouldn't have been done well, but was done amazingly. And I didn't actually realize, I also have Let Me Hear a Rhyme, which I didn't for some reason make the connection that they are written by the same author. So now I really can't wait to read that one, because this one was phenomenal. And again, like I said, another 5-star read. So the next read is my one read that really made me fall off the bandwagon. So like, I had so many 4, 4.5, 5-star reads, and then I read this thing. And then I read Blue Ticket by Sophie McIntosh. And guys, this one was one of my books that I was highly, highly anticipating. I had heard phenomenal things about it. I thought I was going to love this one. It's a dystopian novel where when you basically start your period, you could either become a white ticket person or a blue ticket person. And if you are a white ticket person, you are able to have children, you're able to get married, you're basically allowed that life. If you get a blue ticket, no. You are a career person, you are not allowed to have a family, you are not allowed to have a husband. Basically, you are just set to work. And in the beginning, our character kind of doesn't matter. She's like, I don't care, whatever I get, this is great. She ends up pulling a blue ticket, and then she realizes, wait a minute, you just took my choice away from me. I want to have a baby. So it's like years later, and she decides that she is going to do anything to become a mom. And this book was so boring. It was so dull. I didn't like her. I didn't like anybody around her. I didn't like anything about this story at all. The ending was just irritating. I don't understand this world. There was no world building whatsoever. I have no idea why the world is the way it is in this book, and this book is immediately going to get unhauled, I think. And it makes me so angry because I paid like full price for this when I bought it for my birthday. This is getting unhauled and sold or something, because I don't want it. I don't want it. But then after that, I read something that I absolutely loved. So I was really nervous. I was like, what do I pick up next? Because I had such a great month, and I really didn't want that 1-star read to completely derail my entire reading month. So I was like, what do I read next? I'm so scared. What do I pick up? I don't want to read something that I'm going to hate. And I ended up picking up All Boys Aren't Blue. This book, again, I don't usually rate nonfiction. You're going to see other nonfictions in here that I didn't rate. I don't typically rate nonfiction unless it's a 5-star read, because then I feel like I'm judging someone's life. So unless it is a completely impactful, amazing, I can't find a flaw with it book, 5-star read, I won't rate it. So this one, I gave 5 stars. This is a young adult novel. And well, not novel, it's a memoir. And I listened to this on audio, and I kind of regret that. Like, I loved listening to it on audio because I could not stop listening. And the author reads this himself, so it has such an amazing tone, and just, it's impactful, and he feels like he's talking to you, and it was just phenomenal. So definitely recommend the audiobook. But also, I wish I had the physical book, because I wanted to go back and like reflect, and I wanted to go back and like highlight. I wanted to go back and really take in some of those impactful moments and those impactful lessons. So our author of this book, I'm blanking on his name all of a sudden. I wrote down all the titles, but I forgot to write down authors. He is a Black man. He is part of the LGBTQ plus community, and it's basically about him growing up being parts of these two communities and the struggles and there's also joy. There's also some joyful moments in here, but really like what he went through trying to find himself and where he fits in the world. And it was phenomenal. It is such a hard read as well because there are some things that happen to him in his life that are just purely tragic and heartbreaking. And again, it's a book that I definitely want for my shelves because after I finished it, I almost wanted to reread it immediately. So I think that speaks to it because I never reread books. So phenomenal read. If you're looking for an audiobook, please check that one out. Then I also listened to this one on audio, even though I own it, and that is The Wife Upstairs by Rachel Hawkins. This is a thriller novel inspired by Jane Eyre, and this is about a woman. She is basically like a dog walker, and one day while she is walking her dog, and she's also in this, again, like unhealthy relationship with this guy that she's living with that she really doesn't care about. She's trying to figure out her way out. She's fleeing from a dark past. And one day while she's walking this dog, she ends up with this man who basically rocks her world and like sweeps her off her feet. But we do know that his wife went missing just about 6 months prior. This was so good as well. Another one that I highly recommend you read on audio. It was just fun. There was a couple little like narrator like changes throughout it, which just made it really gripping. Gave it 4.5 stars. The ending was just interesting. I feel like I need to talk about it. So if you've read this, like, let me know so we can go talk. But I really recommend this one. I haven't read Jane Eyre, so I don't know how much of a great Jane Eyre retelling it is. But it was really good for what it was. And I've read Rachel Hawkins' YA books in the past, so I knew I liked her writing style already. But this one it was really good. It was a nice, smooth transition into an adult novel. After that, I read The Last Black Unicorn by Tiffany Haddish. This is a memoir about Tiffany Haddish. She is a comedian. I did not rate this one. It was not necessarily a 5-star read for me, so I don't want to give it a rating. But it was fun. It was interesting. I really thought, like, at times that there is no way that this is real. It just felt so over the top and to the point where, like, the fact that it's real is heartbreaking. And again, she covers a lot of different topics of, like, really how she rose to the popularity that she is and growing up and the hardships that she had to deal with. And I thought it was a really interesting read. It's a very fast read. It's only 270 pages. And I have to commend her because she spent most of her life basically illiterate. She couldn't read or write until high school when somebody finally swooped her under her wing and was like, let me teach you how to read and write. So the fact that she didn't know how to read and write until high school and now she's a published author, like, I find that so amazing, especially as a teacher. Like, any growth you can make with a student, like, and things like that, I find that so valuable and important that basically, like, even when you are kind of given nothing, you could still make something of yourselves. So I find it completely inspirational, and I do recommend it if you like Tiffany Haddish. I found it interesting, and I'm glad that I finally read it. And then after that, I listened to another audiobook for a book that I owned. For some reason, I was very addicted to audiobooks. I feel like I go back and forth with whether or not I'm addicted to audiobooks, and I'm currently in the moment where I'm addicted to audiobooks. And I listened to The Confessions on the 745 by Lisa Unger, and I gave this one 4 stars. This is a thriller novel where there's a woman, and she knows that her husband is cheating on her with the nanny. She caught it on the nanny cam. She's like, I can't believe he's cheating on me again. And one day she's on the train and the train stalls out and they're like stuck there in the dark. And she ends up meeting this woman. And while they're on the train, she basically, for some reason, she doesn't know why, but she basically spills her guts to this woman. And she's like, let me tell you all my life problems. And she tells her about how the nanny is sleeping with her husband. And they go their own ways, and suddenly the nanny goes missing. What happened? So I liked this one. My only problem, especially on audio, because their voices were pretty much the same, there were a lot of perspectives in here then there were like some random ones where like they would only snip in like every once in a while, like when her son like has a perspective like twice, like, and it's just like, was that necessary? So to me, it just felt like a little confusing with how many perspectives there were, but I did find that twist to be kind of interesting. Some people said it was predictable. I didn't see it coming. I like kind of saw it coming, but not fully. Like I couldn't make the full connection and the full picture when it happened. So I did enjoy it. I just didn't love it as much as I wanted to. I think if they did do different narrators per perspective, it might have been a little bit clearer. I think I'm just a little spoiled by the fact that when there are voice casts, I love those so much more. So I think I get a little spoiled that when I read one that doesn't have one, it turns to be a little bit confusing. But again, it was a solid read, a good thriller. I just didn't love it like as much as I liked The Upstairs Wife. Then after that, I read You Should See Me in a Crown by Leah Johnson. I really just wanted something that was going to be light and fluffy and easy to get through. I basically finished Confessions on the 745 like right after my illness, and I just really wanted something that was going to be light and fluffy because I hadn't read kind of that whole week where I wasn't feeling good. So I wanted to pick up something light and fluffy, and this one was really interesting because it didn't really feel light and fluffy as I was reading it, so it kind of didn't give me what I wanted in that regard. But we are following our main character, and she really wants to go to this college where she could be in this band program and become a doctor and really like make something for her life. Her brother has sickle cell anemia. Her mother died from that. So they live with her grandparents. So she really wants to make something of her life. And she goes to a private school, and one day she finds out that she didn't get the scholarship. And without getting the scholarship means she's not going into this college that she really wants to go to. So she's really, really upset. And she figures that the only way she could really go to this school is if she runs for prom queen, because in this community, for some reason, like you earn like this big scholarship fund for prom queen. I went to an all girls school. We didn't have prom queen, so I don't know what that is. I know what it is. I just don't know all the aspects of it. But I thought this was, was another one that deals with so many different topics. Our main character is also part of the LGBTQ plus community, which I thought was really interesting, and I thought they handled it really well because she was like kind of out of the closet, but not fully. So watching her character growth and her character development throughout the story, and her relationship with this other girl who is new to the school, I thought was really sweet, and I really liked the trajectory that her relationship took. It wasn't an easy relationship, which I think is good for teens to see, that all relationships do take work and are not just this, you're together and it's great type of thing. There was, and I've heard this before I read this, there is a relationship problem in here with a friend that I thought was really mishandled as well. Like I had heard somebody say that ahead of time, and I have to agree that I think that the friendship problem was solved way too easy, and I really disliked how easily it was just resolved. So I did give this one 4 stars, but I did think that this one is really important, and I kind of can't wait to see what Leah Johnson writes next. I've seen the cover. It looks very similar in style to this, so should be a fun read. Then after that, I read Rules of Magic by Alice Hoffman. This is a kind of a historical fiction. It is a prequel to Practical Magic. So it goes Practical Magic, this is the prequel, which is the Rules of Magic, and then the other prequel, which is Magic Lessons. And so I read Magic Lessons first back in October. So I'm kind of going backwards. Like I'm starting with the prequels, and then I'm going to get to the big kahuna at the end. So I'm kind of reading it out of order, but I'm reading it in order of timeline, so it does still make sense to me. And in this world, this family, they basically, there's a curse on their family that anybody that falls in love with them, or like you fall in love with them, like something bad is going to happen to that loved one. And they're trying to obviously figure out how to live their life around the curse. Magic Lessons is kind of about how the curse came to be. And then this one, and I believe Practical Magic, like I said, is about the families that are trying to deal with this curse. And in this one, it takes place in the 1960s. And at first I was like, how is she going to make it feel like the 1960s? But she definitely fit in some current events and timelines in there that made it feel like it was part of the 1960s. So I think she did a really nice job of setting that time frame. So she does a really nice job of making that setting feel real. And in this one, we are following 3 siblings from that same family and how they all are dealing with the curse. And I won't go too much further because, again, spoilers. I will say that these books are a little bit slower. She writes in a very lyrical way that makes it go a little bit slower. So if you're not in the mood for a slower read, I wouldn't recommend picking them up. But if you're ready for something like that and just a journey that it's going to take you on, and again, because she sets it in these current timelines of like the first one was in the Salem witch trials and like this one was in the 60s, she really hits hot topics of that time to really hit home, because even though they are problems for that time, you could still relate to them in current day, and there's still good life lessons to learn now. So again, I really enjoyed this one. I can't wait to read Practical Magic. I'm hoping it's not on my February TBR officially, but I'm hoping to get to it in February so I can finish this series. But I'm really liking my experience with these, which is interesting because I originally had no interest in this series at all. So I'm glad to see that I'm enjoying it. Then I didn't listen. Actually, I kind of have these, I think, out of order. But I finished The Magic Misfits by Neil Patrick Harris. So this is a middle grade novel. I don't typically share the books that I read with my students because of the fact that most of the time they're books that I've read like a million times, like because of Winn-Dixie. We teach that every year. I'm not counting it towards my goal. So I tend to not count them because I don't know, I just don't. But for this one, I was going to count it because it was originally on my TBR. We were remote the week after Christmas, basically the week after Thanksgiving and the week after Christmas. We were told to stay home and teach from home because just to allow families who were traveling to come back and get tested. So we were remote those 2 weeks. And I forgot to bring a read aloud home. So this one was sitting on my shelf and I was like, we'll read this one. My kids loved this one. I teach 3rd grade, so some of it kind of went a little bit over their heads. There's a lot of big vocabulary in this, but I loved the different types of representation in here. We have a disabled character. We have one of the characters has 2 fathers. We have somebody who has been in an orphanage. We have family, like where parents have died. We have people of color. So I really liked that they tried to hit a bunch of different diverse characters. This one we are following Carter, and his parents have died, and he now lives with his uncle who basically scams people for a living. Carter has quick hands, so he really wants Carter to steal for him. Carter refuses to steal for him, and one day he's kind of had it with his uncle. He hops a train and runs away. And he ends up in this town called Mineral Wells, and there's a carnival that's in town, BB Bosso's big carnival, and there he ends up meeting some magicians who are going to teach him that magic is real. And all the mishaps that happen with this tag team that is getting put together. It was a lot of fun. My kids really want book 2. I don't own book 2, / we don't have time to read book 2, but they were really invested in the story. So I think it would be fun to keep going, but I just don't know if that's going to ever actually happen for me. Then I finished Just Mercy by Bryan Stevenson. This is a nonfiction story. Not story, it's nonfiction, it's not a story, but it's Bryan Stevenson's life story. He is a lawyer, and this is when he kind of was like first starting to really be a lawyer, and the justice system, and how he ends up creating a nonprofit to try to get wrongly convicted people who are on death row off of death row. And it's primarily about his case with Walter McMillan, but it does go into a lot of other stories of other inmates that he has come across whether he was successful with their trials or not, and lots of different facts and information about the social justice system and what it is like. And this was just heartbreaking to read about because of the fact that obviously he puts years in here, about years that like some laws like got reversed and things. Like in 2008 it was finally made illegal to like chain women up while they like gave birth. Like if they were a prisoner and they were going to give birth, like they would have to be handcuffed to the bed, and that was not overturned until like 2008 or something like that. And it was just like shocking because I don't know, I feel like when you're not aware of the prison system, you don't realize the things that go on in a prison and just how inhuman they make it. And just, it was really hard to read, like I said, and even like what Walter went through as an innocent man on death row. It was just so hard to watch what he went through and what people put him through and why he was there in the first place, and how hard it was to get him off of death row. Again, hard book to read. It did get dry at some points. Again, I didn't rate this one because I didn't love it. Like, obviously, you're not gonna love it, but like, there were parts where when it wasn't about Walter and he would talk about other people or other instances, sometimes it would just get dry, and I was like, give me back Walter, because Walter's story was so compelling and I wanted to keep reading Walter's, that when it inserted another chapter about something else, I would kind of like lose interest, in the sense that like I was so invested in Walter's story. I wanted to know about him. I wanted to keep reading about him. So I kind of would have a little bit of disconnect. So I didn't necessarily rate it. If I were to rate it, I'd probably give it a 4-star. So it was very close to a 5-star in my opinion. It just didn't quite make it there. I do plan on watching the movie this weekend, so I'm excited for that. But another one. Like, look at me. Last year my goal was to read 1 nonfiction a month, and this month in January I read 3. The last book I don't own, and that is We Aren't From Here. And this is a book that I listened to on audio, again, through Hoopla. And this one was recommended to me from Ashley from Bookish Realm. I was watching one of her wrap-ups, I believe, and she talked about it, and I was like, I need to read this. And it's a YA novel as well. Again, these YA books are like knocking it out of the park. And this is about a migrant story of 3 teenagers who are living this just awful life pretty much in Guatemala. Like, they're loved, they've got their family, they've got their little bit of community, but there is definitely evil lurking in their town. And something happens that causes the 3 of them to have to run. They have to leave. They need to get out of there, and they're going to do anything that it takes to get out. They are going to leave Guatemala, go through Mexico, and come to America, and that's their plan. And it's just awful to watch the desperation and knowing that they knew they were basically going to either die in their hometown or die trying to get to America. And it just was earth-shattering and just heartbreaking. And when you think of migrants, you usually think of the adults that are trying to break the border. And to watch teenagers try to do it, and knowing how difficult it is, and knowing that your life is so bad that you are willing to still put yourself through something like this in the hope of getting somewhere better. And at one point, like, there's a train, they call it the Beast, and it's based on a real train. And at one point during this journey, you have to hop this train pretty much. And this train is going at such a speed, and it's so difficult to get on it that people literally try to jump on it and get thrown basically under it and die being run over by a train. But to them, the chance of a new life is worth taking that risk. And it's better than being where they were. And that, I think, kills me. That's how life is for some people. It was just very eye-opening. Again, I'm a little spoiled by the fact that this wasn't a cast audiobook, because there was a character who was a male character that I was convinced was a girl for most of the story. Well, not most. I caught on pretty early, but like it was a good chunk of time before I realized that he was a boy. So I missed having a cast narration. If you know any good cast narrated books, please let me know, because that's like my like bread and butter right there, is a cast narrated story. But again, like going back, this was a very good book. Highly recommend. One of the characters, she's very symbolic and she really envisions things happening. So that can take you a little bit out of the story if you're not into something like that, because she imagines all these things happening that aren't really happening. So if you're not into somebody like that, or writing that's not like that, you're not going to like this. But I really enjoyed it. I gave it 4 stars. I'm very grateful for the recommendation. That was such a long video, but it was because I loved so much that I read that I didn't want to stop gushing. What is your favorite book that you read this month? I don't even know how to pick a favorite because I had so many 4 and 5 star reads. But yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys soon. Bye, everybody.